podcast. My name is David.
And I'm Zach.
That's my guy, Zach. And this is the Star Trek podcast. I wanted to say official, but we're obviously not official. But one day we will be. We're heading for that number one spot.
For our listeners, I think we're the official.
Aw, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
I know Zach said it, but I know you guys meant it. That's why I said thanks. And so if you haven't heard our podcast before, we're basically we're reviewing each episode of Star Trek in each of the different series variations by Stardate. And today we're what are we doing? We're reviewing, that's right. I almost said interviewing. We're reviewing the Enterprise Season 1, Episode 11, episode called Cold Front.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Stardate 0909-215.1.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
And this is I guess this would be the third episode now outside of episodes 1 and 2. Where we get right back into the temporal Cold War. And I think this is the thing that drew Zach in initially to this series. Was it not?
It definitely was. I remember the first time I saw this one, because you kind of have like an inkling of it, but by the time I got to this one, I was like, oh my God, I never even considered this.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And it's so weird that they go 8 episodes without referencing this again,
Well, think about Next Generation, how long they took to re-reference the Borg. Like, it was few and far between,
And Q, too, if
exactly.
I remember correctly.
Yeah, so this really stuck to that old style of Trek storytelling. So,
for a little summary for this episode, while the Enterprise is out on a trek amongst the stars, they find a ship inside of a stellar nursery, and the ship has on board a bunch of pilgrims who are waiting waiting an event termed the Great Plume of Agasauria. And basically what this is every 11 years or so, there's a protostar in the interstellar nursery, and it emits a neutron blast. And for some reason or another, the pilgrims from this species, I looked them up online, I think they're called the Borathans. They consider this sacred somehow.
I think in their holy text, they say that it's the birth of the galaxy happened here.
Okay, so that's how they rationalize it.
Which is why the Plume of Agasauria is a visual component of like that rebirth every 11 years.
Interesting. Now the question I would have about that is, how did they discover that? Did they discover it when they initially went trekking amongst the stars? Did they have a telescope back on their homeworld that they witnessed it from? How did they discover this Great Plume of Agasauria?
Well, let me pause it. So, these Borathans?
Borathans, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
These Borathans, their god must have contacted them through some sort of official means to let them know that at this location is the center of their galaxy, and that's why. Because you want to know why, David? Do you want to know why they know that?
Did they have faith of the heart?
Because they got faith of the heart, dude.
Okay. Is that where you're going?
That's exactly where I'm going.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a long road for them getting from there to here, and now that they're there,
their time is finally here.
Their time is finally
11
here.
years.
Every 11 years, because they've got faith. They've got faith.
Faith of the heart.
There you go.
So, as a gesture of goodwill, Archer welcomes them on board. While they're on board, something happens, and one of the pilgrims disconnects a component in the engine room, and miraculously, this saves the engine later because they enter the interstellar nursery, and it causes a chain of explosions in the engine room, and because the Pilgrim disconnected that thing from the engine, it saved them from blowing up the entire ship, basically. And so Archer's baffled by this, and he wants to find out who did it. And as he's going to find out who did it, a crewman named Daniels pulls him aside and unveils quite a few things.
Yeah. So, I find you can see how stoked Archer is inviting these pilgrims aboard.
Yeah.
Hey, Captain, we're from Earth. And it's like, you guys are the only ones who are stoked about that, but I get it. And then
Dad's out trimming the hedges, and he sees the neighbors, and he's like, "Hey, why don't you come over for
Heidi ho, neighbor, we got beers
dinner
and carne asada going. The grill's open. Baseball season."
Yeah.
And so yeah, one of the pilgrims, as it turns out, you think might be the Suliban based on the cold open of this episode, where the not the masks, but the image of a man is taking away a enhancement from Silic, and this is the first time you hear that his name is Silic.
Yeah.
Because he fucked up in the first episode, second episode.
Yeah.
About bringing the Klingon to Kronos, killing him or whatever, and so, in watching this episode a second time, you really notice how much they focus on that pilgrim and Daniels throughout the episode until they reveal who they are.
Yeah.
And so that pilgrim, go ahead.
There is a scene early on where, the pilgrims are entering the starship, and, right as it's like shifting between scenes and they do kind of the interlude music, they just catch that one pilgrim's face. And for 3 seconds, and you're like, why did they do that? And then later on you learn that it's Silic.
That's that guy. Yeah. And so he pulls like a power conduit and stops some sort of chain explosion in the thing. And I have a theory that he did that to mentally pose a sense of friendship with Archer.
Okay.
Because it's like, I'm here for you, buddy.
Right.
I saved the ship. And it's like,
why would I do that if I'm trying to kill you?
Yeah, exactly. And I think a good person on the temporal Cold War side, like Daniels, who ends up revealing himself as being from like the 31st century, I don't think he would literally suffer through being with pinkskins. If he wasn't a good guy.
Yeah, totally. So there's two things about Daniel's appearance that I call into question. The first is that, okay, so Silic basically saves the Enterprise from exploding. And Archer asks Daniels when they're meeting in his quarters, he says, so what would have happened if Silic didn't save us? Would my ship have blown up? And Daniel says, not necessarily, or he says something to that effect. So my question is, if that explosion went all the way through the reactor, would it have blown up the ship? In other timelines, is NX-01 Enterprise the first one just a failed experiment where it blows up in a interstellar nursery, and they're just some forgotten memory?
I think they would have fixed it. So this is like a Pandora's box of ideas. So yeah, I think the underlying notion in Star Trek is that all timelines are happening at the same time. And we happen to only watch the prime timeline.
Okay.
But at any point you could be in a different one, because I think they subscribe to the multiverse sort of string theory.
Okay.
Variation of like energy fields, if you will, or different timelines.
Interesting.
And so it is not necessarily, but you'll find out later, eventually, they go to a mirror universe.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, I imagine in canon, Archer is a revered captain. And they do a lot of things. Archer's very pivotal to the creation of the Federation. And so, in the prime timeline, you assume that if you watch it, it's the prime timeline. So you assume that our Archer will be the one who brings forward the Federation. Okay. So when Daniel says that, I think he means, well, I mean, in other ones,
right,
Archer dies because he, I think it's assumed, can go.
There's infinite variations on the timeline.
Yeah.
Okay. See, now what I was thinking is, okay, maybe they could get around that by saying that, because of the Suliban in this timeline, in the first episode, that changed the course of history, and so
Fair.
it's like the old allegory when they talk about changing history, like, hey, if you ever go back in history, don't step on a cockroach, because that could mean in a million years that there's giant cockroach warlords that like kill humans. Like maybe because of the Suliban presence in the first and second episode, it changed the course of that history to where that Enterprise goes into that part of the interstellar nursery, and basically undergoes that plasma storm that almost blows up their engine. But in other timelines, had the Suliban not been present, that would have never happened. Mm-hmm. That was my thinking, at least, of how maybe you could rationalize that.
Yeah, I think it's officially described as a predestination paradox or time loop, which is a phenomenon in which an event of time travel could become a part of events which had already occurred and could even lead to the initial event of time travel in the first place.
Right.
So yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So that was the first thing I wanted to address. The second thing I wanted to address is Archer asks Daniels if he's human, and Daniels says that he's more or less human.
Yeah.
So, I mean, later in the episode, Silic confronts Archer in his quarters. He finds out who the agent is, and he goes and kills Daniels. And so when he shoots Daniels, there's that weird scene where he's kind of like phasing in between dimensions, I guess, and then he just kind of explodes. Mm-hmm. I wonder if they did that as like he's like maybe like an advanced android, or maybe he's maybe he just died that way because he's an interdimensional traveler, or I don't know what he means by when he says he's more or less human. Like, I mean, I don't know if 900 years in the grand scheme of evolution is really consequential, and I don't really know if humans would have evolved much more. True,
but I do think the notion that technology could have advanced a shitload in 900 years.
Right.
So much so that time travel has, so maybe he is some sort of combination of things. Mm-hmm. And maybe time travel has something to do with it. Not to give too much away to you, but...
Part human, part Borg.
Yeah. He's not dead. He's dead now.
Okay.
But he's not dead where he's from.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. I think the Suliban have a rudimentary concept on temporal mechanics.
Okay.
And so I think he literally phases out of the timeline now.
Okay.
But he
so
comes
maybe
back
I'm asking
later.
too many questions about this.
No, I think they're good. They purposely left that more or less in for this purpose. So.
Well, then it just means I'm watching it critically, because I did notice that.
And that's what you get on the Star Companion.
That's right. You get
critical takes.
You get hot takes.
Hot scoops. Takes and hot cakes. Yeah, what a great open. And furthermore, so this is the first instance that they talk about the movie night on the ship.
Yeah.
And it totally becomes a thing. And I would watch the shit out of Night of the Killer Androids.
Oh yeah,
I'd watch that.
And could you imagine having like a projector with like windows out to space on either side, and like maybe some dim lighting above the projector? How dope that would look on a starship.
Have you seen an episode where they do that? The movie?
No, I haven't. Is that where it happens?
Well, that sounds a lot doper than it is. It's literally like a classroom. In the mess hall, they put a projector up.
Okay, cool.
It's like, right. Didn't figure that one out, did we? It's like getting an REI tent when you sleep on another planet, of course.
That was like the last thing that they put on the ship. Okay, we got toilet paper, we got towels, and right as they're walking on the ship, oh shit, the projector, and they just run off and like just grab like a shitty little Nikon.
Yeah, and they got a screen, Just get butcher paper, it's fine.
Yeah.
So it's the first episode of Daniels, the first time they mentioned Silic. Mm-hmm. First mention of the movie night, by name. And first appearance of T'Pol's disbelief in time travel based on the Vulcan Science Directorate's conclusions.
Right.
Both the temporal observatory and the phasing device are lost in this episode, but Daniels' temporal database remains to be used in later episodes.
That's right. What? Yeah, I didn't ever finish the summary, so I think the last place I left off is Daniels gets killed by Silic, and Silic manages to steal some technology from his quarters. Mm-hmm. And Archer goes to find him and also finds a piece of equipment of Daniels that allows him to kind of phase through walls with some sort of hand device, which is dope.
Yeah.
And in a very tense sequence of scenes, there's a fight, and then Silic tries to escape, and Archer chases him down. And right as Silic thinks he's getting away, Archer shoots the device that he's trying to steal out of his hands. And Silic jumps through a floor in a shuttle bay and lands on a solo-bound sphere.
Transport sphere,
yeah.
So this is the first episode to not feature a shuttle pod. Brilliant.
Interesting.
It was pretty contained in just Enterprise.
That does make sense.
Mm-hmm. Which is kind of nice, there's some, and they got to meet aliens still, so there's a lot of real honest-to-God, like, interaction of crew ideas. You see a little bit Mayweather stoked to get in the captain's chair, Hoseto eggs him on, Reed's doing his, I'm British military man. Dad says, looks like we're having some guests. Yes, dog. Everyone was on the ship and saw him. Everyone was there for that conversation.
Yeah. Dr. Phlox again establishing that he's the cutest member of this crew by going over and spending a night with the Borothans and then coming back. And they ask him to recite the chant, and he like almost tears up. Like he's so. I'm in Phlox's corner, man. That dude is what's up.
Phlox is, in fact, the man.
Yeah.
He's the man. He really is.
I would say thus far, he's probably my favorite character.
100%.
He just adds so much, and his character is so dynamic, and, he's just the guy who plays him is just a great actor. He fits that role perfectly, just the way that Archer, or that Bakula fits the role of Dad.
There it is. Yeah. He's the Data of this series.
Yeah, he is.
In my mind.
Smart, like unbelievably smart, but also childlike and innocent and has a sense of wonder. Yeah,
it's the wonder for me. It's like, okay, he wants to learn. He wants to be a part of this. Yeah. He doesn't fully understand what's going on, but wants to figure it out.
Yeah.
I like that, there's some sort of allegorical representation of the renewal of Agasauria and the renewal of this temporal Cold War and roles on Enterprise and, the gravity of, or lack thereof, space joke. And in their mission,
Right.
So it's a good episode. Like through and through, it's cool.
And a fun fact of this episode, I know we've discussed it in previous episodes. It's directed by the guy who plays Lieutenant Tom Paris in Voyages.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
And I think we talked about it last episode where we were saying that the great thing about Star Trek is that they bring back cast members to direct those episodes, and each one brings their aesthetic. This is the first one I've seen that he directed, and I don't know if he directs anymore, but it's going to be interesting to see if he directs anymore what his aesthetic is.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
This was a really writing heavy episode though, so I don't know really how much he could put his own spin on, because this is reestablishing that temporal Cold War again. But again, I'm just be interested to see if he does any more in the future.
Yeah, me too. I had no idea. Paris is an interesting character.
Is he?
Yeah. He's a ex-Starfleet, then joins the Maquis, and then leaves the Maquis and then betrays him.
Wow.
Yeah. He's quite the snake.
Interesting.
But I haven't gotten far enough in Voyager to really understand his plot arc, but he's a good character. All right, well.
Fascinating. The last thing I wanted to say is I really like, and this is just kind of I don't know why I really like it, but I just thought it was such a cool scene. When they place the lock on Daniel's quarters at the end, when Reed and his little security detail place that giant space lock on his quarters, and they kind of look at each other and kind of nod and they walk away. And then there's just kind of a slow pan up to the door, and then it just kind of fades out to the credits. That moment just had such good, like, tense, I want to say tensity, but intensity maybe to it. Because it's like, who was this guy? What else is in his quarters? If he wouldn't have gotten shot, what would have happened? Like there's a lot of
what ifs.
What ifs, and that's great television to me. I love when a television show leaves things unanswered. And I feel like it's a folly of, or maybe not the folly, but I've noticed in a lot of modern TV, like especially over the last couple of years, whenever there's conflict in an episode, it generally tends to get resolved in that episode. And I feel like it condenses plot too much. I really enjoy when shows drag out the resolving of a conflict over a couple of different episodes.
Oh yeah, and trust, it's probably gonna be like 8
really?
to 10. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, they do a lot of Monster of the Weeks until they start tying up more of these. And then
Perfect.
Seasons 3 to 4 get pedal to the metal.
Yeah.
And then they throw in that Xindi storyline mixed with this temporal Cold War.
Yeah.
So
I can't wait for that.
Needless to say, that what if is valid.
I have a, I guess maybe a somewhat funny anecdote or aside about that. Did you ever watch the show Glee?
No.
Okay. Well, I watched the first like two seasons, I'd say.
Oh wow.
And the first season of Glee was actually really, really good, because the whole season was about the music teacher for Glee. He's married to this woman, and she fakes that she's pregnant. She wears like this like pregnancy like stomach. She wears like a pillow on her stomach and pretends that she's pregnant. And the whole episode, it's building up to this moment where he reveals that she's not pregnant, and they get in this like massive fight, and he like leaves her, and it's like that whole build up, that whole season was really good. And then the second season came around, and they would have conflicts, and they just resolve it in the same episode. And Stranger Things kind of went the same way. I don't know if you saw the second season of Stranger Things, but the first season of Stranger Things is all about, oh my God, what's going to happen next? The second season of Stranger Things has a little bit of that, but there's like mini conflicts that they resolve in each of the episodes. So I know I'm kind of rehashing the same point, but
that's okay.
That's just, I mean, again, it's just something that I love that Star Trek does.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Those are good points.
Thanks. I try to make a few.
You make many.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thanks,
We're
guys.
friends. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
They said that too.
They said that, but you meant it. Well,
Yeah.
they meant it, but you said it.
Yeah,
so.
I'm just a conduit for the people. Yeah. All right, well, this has been the Star Companion, trekking through Trek. Thanks for listening. Catch us everywhere.
That's right. And take care of yourself, everybody.
Take care of yourself. That's what it was.